Hello and welcome to Bull and Specs. I'm Adrian Lacey in Kent, and he is Shane O'Connor. Come in the East Midlands, please. How are you?
I'm all right. It's getting more and more specific, isn't it? You're going to give the street name one of these episodes. I know. I think you're lonely and you want people to pop round.
You've seen right through my ruse.
Give me your postcode. At least I'll get in the right area.
I'm nearly into double figures of friends on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
I
remember having a conversation with somebody once about it. Was, I think, probably early days of Facebook, and they said, I've got 300 friends or whatever. And I said, well, you haven't really, have you? You've got there's 300 people kind of, sorry, I've got some motorbikes going past, and if you can hear that. 300 odd people that have connected with you, but they're not really your friends. So I thought, and he was ever so crestfallen. He was like,
Did you see his crest fall?
I said, that's your crest on the floor down there.
It's fallen.
He said, oh, sorry, it's fallen.
I'm so sorry.
But yeah,
anyway, we should explain
after that.
for the what, in real life or on Facebook?
I said, well, you've only got 299 now, so the joke's on you.
Oh, you are so cruel.
Oh,
anyway,
yes, sorry.
For the uninitiated or the people who just haven't been listening for the past 33, 34 editions, we sort of natter inanely. You've got that bit. Sometimes we're less inane, aren't we? Sometimes we're more inane. But anyway, no, hopefully entertaining at least, and very occasionally a bit informative. So it's a game of three halves.
I must have missed that one.
Yeah, yeah. I think you were asleep.
I was away for that one.
For those 2 minutes. I was just talking to myself, and you're only getting my opinion, so maybe no one would agree. But anyway, it's the two of us, Adrian here, Shane there. It's neither here nor there. But we talk about our past week, which we're about to do. Then we talk through a couple of stories from the past week, which have made the wider news beyond our own sort of hallowed turf. I was going to say restricted small worlds. We try and look at a bigger world beyond. Anyway, I've just kind of punctured your next bit of news by saying it's a small world. It's a huge world to you, isn't it? Save me from this ramble, please.
Anyway, I haven't come out of this room since last episode. That's how small my world is.
But it's so threatening out there, isn't it? I don't blame you.
Let me tell you, just briefly, actually, it was not more what I did this week, but more somebody else did. I don't know if you know, I'm a big fan of adverts. I drive my wife mad because I love adverts.
Right.
And clever adverts, that is. I will often tweet companies and say, I really like your advert. Or not, as the case may be, depending on whether I, someone like Nationwide, I think, for some reason, make the most dreadful adverts and have done. Building societies in general make really bad adverts. I don't know why that is. Since do you remember Howard from the Halifax adverts?
Oh, God, who could forget Howard, bless him.
Fellow Brummie, of course. But since him, there haven't really been any decent... And I'll tweet them, but this week I tweeted, I'll cut a long story short, I tweeted Screwfix, the company, who...
sorry, I thought that was a curse. It's a brand name, sorry.
Screwfix.
Mind your language.
Yeah. Who are, for the uninitiated, they're like a builders, merchants gone mad, aren't they? They're kind of like how would you describe them? They're sort of...
Don't ask me. I'm the complete opposite of DIY.
Have you never used Screwfix? They're awesome.
Not knowingly.
All right, and I'm not being paid for this, but they are really awesome. If you want something, you can order it online. You can go and pick it up at the counter, and it's really good. Anyway, the World Cup is on at the moment.
That much I know, yes.
And a lot of people are doing adverts relating to the World Cup, and they're really cheesy, and they're really bad, and they're really tacky, and they really look rubbish. But what Screwfix have done, they've obviously trawled through their database of builders and DIYers who have bought stuff from Screwfix, and they found namesakes of footballers. I'm just holding up my... Can you see my iPad now? I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, yeah, just about.
You can see... You can see. I'll just show it to the other camera. It's always very bright again. But you can see Alan Ball. I'll put a graphic up with all these on. Alan Ball is a carpenter. He's not Alan Ball the footballer. He's Alan Ball the carpenter.
I thought it was a career change after retirement.
Ashley Cole is actually a lady, and it's spelled Ashley, Ashleigh, Ashley Cole. She's a DIYer.
I'm assuming we've obviously got these people's permission because they're looking into camera.
Well, I'll tell you the full story in a sec. But Chris Waddle is a woodland ranger. David Seaman,
Woodland ranger. Do we have any of those?
oh yeah, it's only in the woodlands.
I'm such a townie.
But
okay.
they tried
range
it
about,
in the town. It wasn't working for him. Trevor Francis, all Brummies will know that name. Trevor Francis is a handyman. Kevin Keegan, the carpet fitter, and so it goes on. And I never gave it a thought until I got to this guy. This guy is called Peter Crouch.
Right.
And of course, there's a footballer, the big tall lad, ex-England and ex-Stoke City, Peter Crouch. But this Peter Crouch he used to listen to my show because he's in Redditch. He used to listen to my show when I was on Coventry, and we're connected on Facebook and Twitter.
Hang on, is this the real Peter Crouch or the Screwfix?
And I always used to say
Crouch?
to him, he used to phone up the show and I'd go, it's Peter Crouch here. And I said, not the real Peter Crouch. And we'd always have this, and he tweeted me, I'd always say, not the real Peter Crouch. Anyway, blow me down if he doesn't feature in the adverts.
So to him, he is the real Peter Crouch.
Well, of course, exactly. The other one is just an imposter. But the really cool thing is, he told me, he's on Facebook, and I said, "Oh, I love the adverts; they're brilliant." And he said, because he switches on the lights and then he heads the light bulb in the advert. He actually did a TV ad as well for this. Right. And he said, "Oh yeah, it took me 27 takes. They did 27 takes of me heading the light bulb." On these adverts. But yeah, it was I just thought, oh, how cool. And it was somebody that I knew that was in these ads. And I tweeted Screwfix, and they tweeted back to say how much they like it. And the woman who works for Screwfix, I think she's in their marketing, she's a marketing director, actually retweeted and liked it as well. And I'm wondering whether it might be her idea and that's why she likes it.
Well, yes, that would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but how cool. I thought, I never known anybody's been in a TV advert, but I now know the real Peter Crouch.
Fantastic. Now, see, if I knew anything about football and about the football of Peter Crouch's record, there could have been a joke there about Peter Crouch needed 27 takes to score a goal as well, or something like that. But anyway, the moment's gone.
Sadly for him, that works.
I'll be hearing from his lawyers. Soon.
Love it. So that was my little thing this week, my little pony. What about you? What have you been up to?
Well, I'm a bit conflicted because there's so many things I want to talk about, and if I didn't take so long to explain things, I realised, am I allowed to have a callback from the week before on special grounds? I got a joke of mine on Twitter liked by Arthur Smith, himself a stand-up comic, and he's a regular on Radio 4 and Radio 4 Extra these days. Yeah. And Mayor of Balham, which is near where I used to live in London.
Doesn't he do Balham Bash still? Does he still do that, or on Radio 4?
That I don't know. I mean, I've moved out of that area long since, but he's always happy to point out he's self-appointed Mayor of Balham.
Yeah.
But he does. I don't know if you've seen them, but he does these setups on Twitter, and then people come back with. So the setups are funny in their own right, and so. He's just throwing it out there and see what gags people come back with. He's not nicking them because he's a very generous soul, actually. And I have interviewed him and met him. I guess you can't interview someone you haven't met. Well, I suppose you could do it down the line. Anyway, see, this is why I ramble and never have time for all these things. He put out there the study of the iceberg lettuce isn't rocket science. So already you're laughing. You see, it's a good setup. So it can only get better. I came back with two things. The first thing was actually the first half of it is factually correct. I read once, and this is genuinely true, I'm led to believe by geneticists, that we share 30% of our DNA with lettuces or vice versa.
Oh, really?
The first 30% of the code is the same. And to which I added, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Oh, please yourselves. Anyway, too clever by half. But the next bit, I thought, I scrolled down to what other people were writing, and then it gave me a little idea, so a bit of inspiration. And I came back again, because you're allowed 2 bites of the cherry, apparently. I told you he's a generous guy. I came back again to his setup with, in the Great Lettuce referendum, 48% voted Romaine.
Very clever.
Probably too clever.
Too clever. You see, if I'd have gone lowest common denominator and said something like, are you only discussing this on the webs?
Oh, because you say so.
Oh,
yes.
And so on. It's amazing how lettuces you know, isn't it, when you start to reel them off?
Exactly. Anyway, that probably hasn't left me time for anything else, has it? I don't know. How are we doing for time? Am I allowed to... So one from this week. My neighbour turns 100 years old on Sunday. 100 years old.
Yeah.
And my fault for looking for a card in WH Smith's. I will have to look further, it turns out. I've got an emergency backup card. I've got one more day to look in a local card shop, which I think might be able to help. But do you know, according to WH Smith, no one gets older than 90 because they have no cards for someone turning 100, which I would have thought in the 21st century they're missing a marketing opportunity.
I don't think, I think there's an age limit. If you're 91, you can't get in to WH Smith's. I think that's what it is.
But other people can go on your behalf to buy a card. Anyway, so I either had the option of buying one for a 90-year-old and scribbling out the 9 and adding a 10, which I would have thought. Or there was another card which appealed to me, but I'm not sure you'd get it. With all due respect, it said, have a totes amazeballs birthday. And they might have added the word do, but, you know, all due respect, he's also, I should add, he's Italian. So he might be rather thrown by amazeballs and totes. You know, I could be wrong. He might use the language of the street and he just doesn't do it in front of me. So I've gone for a very safe option, which quite simply, I mean, in a way it can't go wrong, but it's just too safe. It's quite simply holding it up to camera. Happy birthday to you.
See?
Yeah.
And then what? And then you put a message
trusted,
about being 100 inside.
Well, that's the option, but I'm still holding out for a better option at the local card shop tomorrow.
I think you're better off doing what you do. And then inside put, congratulations on reaching your 100th. That's totes amazeballs. You're listening to the Bull and Specs podcast with me, Shane O'Connor, and him, Adrian Lacey. First story we want to look at this week is, one that's close to your own heart, Adrian, because I think I'm correct in saying you're not a big fan of the idea of us exiting the European Union as a country, Brexit as it's become known. And Airbus is one of the latest companies, I guess, to have waded in on the conversation, the debate, the argument, whatever you want to call it. They've warned that it could leave the UK. They could up sticks and go if we exit the European single market and customs union without a transition deal. They're saying that's it, no more. We're going to go and take our plane wings, tails, whatever it is that we make here in Wales, and we're going to head back to Europe. I mean, on the face of it, a big problem because it's about 14,000 jobs. I think direct employees, isn't it? Something like that. Yes, according to this article I'm reading, 40,000 people at 25 sites. I mean, that's a heck of a lot of sites, isn't it? Well, it's a heck of a lot of wing that they make, isn't it? That's the thing. I mean, it's they make the wings for the A380, don't they? That's one of the main things that they do in Wales. Yes, several models, but yes, including the A380. I don't know about you. I don't have a notion of how many planes are bought worldwide, but there must be quite a few because every nation, well, most nations tend to have several airlines, and they've got to be replenishing the fleet pretty frequently, haven't they? Well, I'll be honest with you. This is you know, I'm a bit of an aeroplane geek, and this is one that I... Oh, gosh, I forgot. I know, sorry. I should never have agreed to this story. I should have a hat with a warning on, shouldn't I, or something like that, you know. Are we going to get into dimensions? No, I promise you we won't talk about that. Let me tell you in simplistic terms, all right? There is a... And you may know this already, I don't know, but there is a battle raging at the moment in the challenge to try and get us on aeroplanes, and it's how they do it. Whether we go in the wheel. Have I talked to you about the wheel and the hub and spoke? Oh, is this? I know this bit, so I must be slightly geeky, yeah, but it's worth explaining to our listeners and viewers. There are two schools of thought when it comes to transporting people around the world. One is that you go from a regional airport, from a Heathrow, for example, and you travel to multiple destinations. Another way of doing it is that you travel to a hub airport, so you'd go from Heathrow or Birmingham or East Midlands or Sheffield or Glasgow or whatever, and you'd fly into Charles de Gaulle, for example, which is a hub airport. Or you'd fly into Schiphol in Amsterdam, which is a hub airport, and then you would fly off to your destination. So really you're taking air travel right to your doorstep. Now, the two planes that will do this are things like the 777, which will be the ones that will fly.
That's a Boeing.
Yeah,
I'm not greatly mistaken.
Yeah, sorry, Boeing 777, which will fly from airport to airport nearer to your destination without going through a hub. And then there are things like the 380 and the jumbo jet, the Airbus A380, which is the double decker plane, and the Boeing 747 jumbo jet, which will fly from hub to hub, and then you'll get a little aeroplane, from your hub to your home airport kind of thing. And it's not clear who's going to win this battle at the moment, but it's looking like Airbus has lost it. And the reason that I say that is this week, I think it was this week or late last week, they were saying that the first Airbus A380 to be made, which was only 10 years ago, is already going to be scrapped for parts because nobody wants to buy it. So Airbus are in the poo, quite frankly, which is the first thing to say about why they would say, oh, well, we're going to go, this is terrible. The second thing, and the most cursory investigation, you can find that Airbus gets a lot of money from the EU, billions of pounds from the EU. And I'm presuming that the directors, because Airbus is a French company, isn't it? It's not a European country, it's a French company. And they're all sitting there thinking, what's going to happen to our subsidy if Britain pull out, because they are obviously a major financial contributor? We could see our billions and billions of pounds every year going south. It was 10 billion at one point, I think in 2016, until the Americans complained and said, look, if you don't stop doing this, we're going to start putting tariffs on your air travel to try and make the playing field level, because you're actually giving Airbus too much money to subsidise it. So there's just a bit of background to say this is probably why Airbus are saying what they're saying. Now, this doesn't help because it's 14,000 jobs and 14,000 people's plus lives that they're mucking about with. But it gives you a bit of context behind the scenes there, really.
Well, thank you for that context, because I'm not one of those tub thumpers who just wants to fight the last war, i.e. the referendum. I mean, you're right. It is the case that I voted for Remain. And I'm all for a rational debate, so you've contributed to that. There's a number here that I'll come back to one or two of the points you made in a moment. I was surprised by the number of suppliers in the UK, 4,000 suppliers. So, I mean, that's quite something. But I suppose that could include one supplier could be for washers, could it? That would count as
yeah. I mean, this is
very small.
This is the thing that the motor industry did for my region, for the West Midlands. Was the nut, bolt and screw manufacturers in the Black Country made a lot of money and a lot of livings off the back of, as you say, being on the supply chain, and just they might make the little screw that goes into the dashboard in a Mini, but that was their business. Yeah.
Well, but what you've said is important context. I mean, retrospectively, and it's the old hindsight thing, in terms of the hub, and are you saying the opposite of that is the spoke argument?
No, I think
is that what it's been branded? Or?
It's the hub and spoke, or the direct route, I think is how they normally describe it, something along those lines. Yeah.
Okay. Wouldn't the smart thing to have done, it's easy for me to say this, and this is drifting off the Brexit part of it, to do an each-way bet, or perhaps that's just impossible, to have gone for the big beast, the A380, and also have a smaller version. But I suppose they do make smaller models as well, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, Boeing kind of thought that they had, you see. They kind of... And to be honest, I don't know if have you ever travelled on a 380? Have you ever travelled on one of these things?
No. Is it anything like a Dreamliner, which I'm a bit of a fan of?
No, the Dreamliner is a much more... I always think of it as much more of a racing car. If you imagine the 380 is like a big lumbering double-decker bus. I mean, it really is.
Okay.
But the big problem with those is when you offload one of those things, or you try and board one of those things, you're one of nearly 500 people.
Right.
Now you can see why they're worried about access and egress from the UK in terms of customs and how long that's going to take. Because if you're trying to sell to your customer, oh look, you can lump 500 people into the UK in one go, and they'll go, oh yeah, okay, you've never been to Heathrow before, have you?
Have you got any idea?
Yeah, and it isn't a great experience from that point of view. So, I mean, I don't. I mean, they've not lasted very well, and I've been on 380s, where the cabin bins are hanging down, they're not fitted properly. And this is in business class, I have to say. And
Really?
Yeah, and they've used silicon sealant to try and seal the seats together. I won't say which airline it was, but yeah, and I took photographs at the time because I thought this is in real shoddy state of repair. So I'm not a fan of the aircraft anyway. The A380, the rest of Airbus's fleet is pretty sweet. The 350 particularly is an amazing aircraft. But yeah, the thing is, with all of this, you kind of think, are they just blowing smoke, or is this a reality? Would they go? I mean, the idea that you make wings, which are a huge, a big bit of kit, aren't they, for an aeroplane that size, and then decide to try and transport them halfway across. I mean, the whole company, Airbus, is so European, and by that I don't mean it as a compliment. I mean in the same way that people think that a camel is a horse designed by a committee. It's that kind of. It's like, why would you do that? Why would you have your base in Toulouse and you'd make wings in Wales? I mean, only a madman would do that. You'd go, well, actually, can we make them nearer to where we are?
The trouble is, obviously, within the Brexit argument, the travel's all going to be in a French direction, isn't it? But yeah, there's obviously a lot of complexity here. And a lot of this, I'd be the first to admit, it's conjecture, isn't it, for us? You've, I'm sure correctly, decoded some of the motivations they've got. It's always worth looking at the small print. And the CBI guy came out very strongly against Brexit, particularly strongly in the last couple of weeks. Turns out he's leaving. So you need to know those extra details. But that doesn't invalidate what he said, but it does contextualise it, doesn't it? He's free to speak, but he might only be speaking his personal mind and thinking of his next job, not necessarily of the people he represents. But I couldn't say one way or t'other on that.
I'm torn as to whether companies actually getting stuck in and waded in on these issues, Adrian, in this way is helpful or not. On the one hand, you say, well, if they really are thinking of leaving the UK, they do need to be honest. Interestingly enough, only a few months ago, Ryanair was saying, "Oh, we're going to have to go. There's no way we can stay if Brexit happens." Next thing, they've got, is it a new base in Southampton or somewhere? They've got a brand new. They've taken over a regional airport and business is booming. So come on, make your mind up. You know what I mean? It's like there's no consistency in what they're saying, is there? That's the problem that I have with it, and I'm not sure whether all of this noise is helpful or not. Because as you, I mean, you're taking a sensible approach. On both sides of the arguments, there are people who take an absolute lunatic approach, and there's no kind of sense, or it's all or nothing. And this is it, and you think, oh, hang on a second, let's analyse this and see what we're talking about. But that worries people, doesn't it? This idea of 14,000 jobs up the Swanee, you can understand it.
Absolutely. And the thing is, there's never been a situation where a country has left the EU. So for what anyone might say, you've got to take everything with a pinch of salt, because it hasn't happened before. And that's part of the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and you can't do a rehearsal. You can rehearse arguments, which we're all doing from different sides with different degrees of red-facedness or otherwise. But let's try and dig into the heart of the message, which is, I mean, surely there isn't an argument for a government not making its mind up one way or t'other. I mean, we've got March 2019 is not so far off.
No.
Monday, by the way, just throw this into the mix as we speak. That's 6 months till Christmas Day. Just throwing that into the mix. And then you've only got another 3 months after that, which is the end of our Article 50 period. And then, of course, we've got the transitional period. The other thing is, mentioning the transition, the first sentence of this article, I'm reading from a BBC article about what Airbus has said, and we should probably wrap up pretty much after this, but Airbus has warned it could leave the UK. It could leave the UK if it exits, so already we've got a could and an if, of course, exits the European Union Single Market and Customs Union without a transition deal. So even that is quite nuanced, isn't it? Without a transition deal. So if we get a transition deal, well, a transition by definition ends eventually. So they haven't ruled out staying here beyond a transition. So we could leave the EU. We're almost certainly going to leave the EU, but some people say, well, never say never kind of thing. And they could be here the other side of that, beyond the transition. So, yeah, I'm not sure how much we've been able to shed light on it, because it is such a complex issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, into the final part of Bull and Specs, we saunter gamely. And this story here is about Grammy-nominated artist Akon. I could try and pretend I know who this chap is and I know all his albums, but I think you'd see through me within seconds. Anyway, I am allowed to read from this story here. It's an interesting story, and he sounds like an interesting guy, so it's worth doing. But am I an authority on Akon? No. He's a multi-platinum selling music producer, but he sounds like if I can use the term, a blue skies thinker. Do you think that's a fair description?
You can't use the term lunatic anymore, can you? So I think, yeah, probably blue sky thinker is the best way to describe him. Can I just say I've got what was your favourite Akon album? Any thoughts on that?
Are you giving me the feed line to say? Well, sure. I thought you were going to ask my favourite TV show by Victoria Wood. Is that the direction we were going?
No, I thought you were going to say was favourite album, and I'd have to say Akon's greatest hits. Because I, like you, haven't got the first clue about any of his. But he's a rapper, isn't he? You see, and I think if you're not into that genre, I work with a guy.
Well, is he a rapper? Because he's a music producer. I mean, you can be a rapper and you can produce your own stuff. Anyway, sorry, the guy you work with.
No, I was just going to say I worked with a guy once who was he was a white guy from Yorkshire. And
this is not starting well.
He knew every. No, I'll just put it into a bit of context. That's all. But he knew every word and every syllable of every song of Eminem. And he used to just like quote it spontaneously, normally at a breakfast show meeting or something like that. You start quoting it like just giving it all this business. So I mean, mate, so if you like rap, that's my point. If you like rap, then you'll know who this guy is. If you don't, you may not. Doesn't make you a bad person, does it?
But why we're talking about it? I'll tell you what. Sorry, I'm drifting off topic as I love to. What embarrasses me is white middle class rappers. That don't start me on that. And Chris Martin of Coldplay has even done a bit of that, hasn't he? And I would call Ed Sheeran a bit too posh to rap and possibly a bit too white. But obviously Eminem shows that you can be white, but Eminem's a bit more street, as I believe middle-class people say when they don't really know what they're talking about.
When they're trying not to get mugged.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, excuse me, sir, are you street?
But this guy, he's just bonkers madonkers, isn't he? I mean, I laughed out loud when I read this story because and I'm presuming that he means all of this, doesn't he? Doesn't he really? He
wants to create his own city. Yes, that's what we're talking about. Yeah, I think he's sincere, but it's the fact that because his roots are in he was born in Senegal and then raised in America, I think is the deal.
That's it. Yeah,
but he's even got the Senegalese president who goes by the name of, and forgive any mispronunciation, I've tried to look this up, Macky Sall.
Yeah,
which himself sounds, to my ear, forgive me, sounds like a rap act. Anyways, the president has given him 2,000 square acres of land for this planned city. Now, I don't know about you, I immediately thought when I read this article, to me that sounds like a gated housing community gone mad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think like that? We'll put a wall around it and we'll just let in the people we want in it.
Well, it's full of contradictions, isn't it? It's like he said he wanted to make this, and I can't find the exact quote from the article, but he wanted to make this land, and it basically, the way I read it was, he wanted to make this land for rich people and famous people, and I thought, well, we've already got Dubai. We don't need another one, do we? Do you know what I mean? It's like, or anywhere in the United States, like Las Vegas, that's for rich people and for famous people to hang out, or New York or Manhattan or anywhere. I thought he was going to create something utopian for us plebs, but I don't think he is he? I think.
No, I thought he was going to help the GDP of Senegal. And forgive me, I did get it back to front. He was born in Missouri, but spent a lot of time growing up in Senegal. So,
okay.
But anyway, Now, this is where I should have seen the movie Black Panther, because there's a reference here to him wanting a real-life Wakanda. Again, hopefully that's the right pronunciation.
Can I just say, though, that's a comic. Like the Black Panther, that's like saying, I'm going to create a new planet and I'm going to call it Krypton. Like Superman, it's like a comic, guys. You know, like you're 45 years old, get a grip of yourself. Hang on.
Does this not remind us of a certain Michael Jackson and was it Neverland?
Well, I was trying to think of the other guy who is a bit like, who says really weird things. It's Kanye West is the other guy who's like, every time he opens his mouth, everybody goes, "What? What?"
Well, unfortunately, not everybody does, because a percentage of the people go, "What a jolly good idea! Let's do that."
Not least the Senegalese president, as you pointed out earlier as well. I mean, yeah. I do, because I got my iPad, as I showed you earlier, and I'm really quite keen on a game called Sim City. I don't know if you're familiar with that,
I know of it, yeah.
Where you build your own city, and I've been playing that the last few weeks, and I just wonder if this is what Akon's done, if he's OD'd on Sim City and he's woken up and thought, I really can do this for real, man. Let's get it on and let's do it, you know.
Yeah.
And then, but the best bit, and this is the one that made me not lol, but gol. It made me guffaw out loud.
Oh, right.
I guffawed. I mean, it was the heartiest guffaw I've done in years, where they said, "So how are you going to do it?" And he went, "Oh, I'm going to let some geek figure out the mechanics."
Yeah, I love that. Right. So you get virtually to the end of the article, you're thinking, right, okay, so he must be setting up strategy meetings and steering committees. No, I'm going to scribble it on the back of a fag packet and give it to some bloke who knows what he's doing.
I don't think he's even going to do that, is he? He's just going to go, right.
I'm going to outsource the fag packet.
And say, right, okay, have you seen Black Panther?
I want one of them.
Do that. I want one of them, yeah. And can I have the suit as well? It is kind of like the whole concept of. I mean, I don't know. Is because he describes himself as a rapper, as a philanthropist. I'm not sure what his philanthropic works extend to, or whether it's just making up imaginary planets and worlds or lands or cities or whatever he's doing this way. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I'm not sure how philanthropic he is, really.
It reminds me of two characters, Billy Liar, and he had ambrosia, didn't he? Which I actually saw Michael Crawford in the stage show, and retrospectively I now realise it was Elaine Page as well in one of her early roles.
Was it
stage.
Really? I had no idea about that.
I believe so. So I'm led to believe.
Fabulous actor, Michael Crawford. I must admit, I love the film. And I think I've told you this before. When my wife was pregnant, I spent a lot. You've seen the film? Have you? You've seen the film with? No,
I haven't seen all of it. I might have seen a bit of it. Not Tom Courtenay.
Courtenay, isn't it? Yeah. Is it?
No, I did, but many years ago, yeah.
And I spent a lot of time shouting at my son into my wife's belly. A man can lose himself in London. Lose himself. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Billy Liar.
So when Frank finally emerged, your baby boy, now sort of 5-6 months.
Yeah, 6 months. Yeah.
Is that the one phrase that makes him giggle most? You can lose, a man can lose.
Do you know, it's really weird, because the reason I mentioned it is I did it to him the other day and he laughed his head off. So I wonder whether he's going to remember any of that.
The ultimate comedy callback to the womb.
Exactly, yeah. The other thing I thought, sorry, with this story with Akon as well, is he's going to do it all with a cryptocurrency, and I wonder whether he came up with somebody said, "Hey, Akon, if you had a cryptocurrency, it would be called Acoin."
Oh,
do you know what I mean?
He started from that point,
and then he thought, that's a good idea. I could do that. Couldn't I? I could have my own currency, and then I don't, you know.
Yeah,
I got the impression that was the way around that it was conceived. This whole thing, I don't know, but
right. I had another thought. I don't know if you remember an evangelist who died in the last couple of years, because I moved in church circles in my sort of teens into early 20s. An American evangelist called Oral Roberts. What a wonderful first name.
Is he American?
Oral. Yeah, very, very much so. Anyway, he had this vision And I never followed it up because I left the church and kind of lost interest in those things. But I'm now kind of retrospectively interested to know he wanted to build a big. I understand it was a massive ego trip thinking about it now, but at the time I was a believer, and it sounded wonderful. He was going to have these praying hands, absolutely massive, like a huge statue, next to a hospital, which was going to be called what else? The Oral Roberts Hospital. And you did wonder, were the only people going to be treated? Did they have to be Bible believing Christians by any chance, or would you help anyone? And knowing the American health system, I mean, we have our own challenges, obviously, always hitting the news. But come on, would it be people on a certain type of insurance with a certain level of income, etc., etc.? So I must look that up now. I've intrigued myself, but it's not just restricted to Mr. Akon.
No, and you do kind of think you've lost your way a bit, haven't you? Because how much, if you hadn't have built the giant hands, how many more beds could you, or how many more operations could you have done, or how many more people could you have helped?
And would you do it without calling it Oral Roberts? How important is that to the project?
Is that part of it as well? But I don't know. This whole thing, as I say, he was saying that it was a way of building people up, and what did he say? To utilise it in ways that you can advance themselves. This is this cryptocurrency. This is Akon saying this, and not allow government to do those things that are keeping them down. What are those things? Do you know this perception that it'll all be all right if it wasn't for the government keeping me down? What are those things? But it's big on ideas and a bit scant on detail, isn't it? This, but as he said, I'll let the geeks figure it out, and we'll take it from there. Presumably, I don't know.
Do you know, for a moment, I thought you were talking about Bull and Specs. Big on ideas, but scant on detail.
And we don't really know where we're going, but we'll let the geeks figure it out when it's all finished.
And I do have to finish the gag, which was that I thought you were going to give me the straight feed line, because normally I'm the straight guy, because I'm nowhere near as funny as you.
Behave.
To which the punchline was Akon Antiques.
That's all we've spent our time doing, isn't it? Is referencing Akon Antiques. There is part of me as well that would like to think that how would he feed these people? That of course they would grow acorn in order to make things from corn, I guess.
Acorn as opposed to bee corn or
sea corn, tricorn. I don't know. It's all getting very
It's not
silly.
getting better now.
Can I just mention as well, if you want to really be freaked out as well, after he's come up with all these ideas. I think he's of a similar vein to Kanye West. I think they both fancy running for president as well. So there's food for thought for the people of...
And he put his name forward as opposed to anyone saying, "Oh right, I've studied this guy. He's sound, and my view is he should be president."
I'm just throwing it out there because a lot of people think the Americans haven't got a great track record in picking presidents. I'm just
just in case you worry about a certain current president, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, it's going to be all right. You'll all be living in part of Senegal very soon, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. Just a quick one. Do you know what blockchain is? Because this is just kind of, it's gone under the radar. It's in this article. Going back to ads, talking about adverts, there's a whole advert about this company who does something with the blockchain, and I'm thinking, where's that?
Isn't that the technology behind the cryptocurrency? I've got that association.
You've just read that.
Have I? No, I haven't. Though. But I've read it previously and recalled it and regurgitated it. But isn't that the technology, or is that actually a private company?
No, I think blockchain is a technology.
Right. Yeah, that's how we get cryptocurrencies. But I mean, but real currency in quotes is virtual anyway, isn't it? I think we might have said this on the show before. If you go and demand all your cash back, and if everyone does it at their banks at the same time, you suddenly realise, well, actually, currency is virtual anyway, isn't it? Yeah. They haven't got the funds they haven't got the notes to give you.
Yeah, it's a notional thing, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, we did a whole section, didn't we? And I remember coming away with a terrible migraine, so we must have explained part of it.
And no money.
Yeah. Sadly, we've run out of the one thing that you can't print any more of, and that's time.
Indeed.
For another episode of the Bull and Specs podcast. If you've enjoyed it, then thanks for being with us. If you haven't enjoyed it, then thanks for enduring for so long to get to the end to realise that you haven't enjoyed it.
but it could get better. So stick with it. Join us next week and subscribe, for goodness sakes. And shall I attempt the audio again just to show I can do it? It wasn't just a fluke last time. We are on Spreaker, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and of course Apple Podcasts and your favourite podcatcher. Oh, sorry, you like to call it iTunes. I saw you shaking your head there.
No, I was. That was a head shake of admiration.
What's it? It looked
for
very
your silky smooth presentation skills.
Oh, bless. Well, I've done a lot of homework in the meantime.
If you want to see not only his silky smooth presentation skills, but
and
his
my silky smooth
skin.
Sorry, ruined you gag.
What did you say? Silky smooth.
No, I just for once I saw the punchline coming, and I didn't see the hairline coming there.
Then why not head along to YouTube if you haven't already, and you can see the pictures that accompany these fab podcasts. But until the next time, I'm going to go off and invent an imaginary country called Shanetopia, where anyone called Adrian is automatically disqualified from coming in.
Oh, charming. I was going to have a big tent to which Shane was welcome and everyone else listening and watching. And can I just put a footnote? Please, please, please recommend us to friends, family, etc., etc. I'm just going to put up my big tent, but it might be a sort of, what is it, a Wakanda wigwam. How's that for alliteration?